Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Pure Crack with Sláinte Theatre. This episode we are joined by the wonderful Kimberley Taylor and Tara Noonan. How are you both doing?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Good, yeah, excited.
Yeah. So obviously we've got something pretty exciting coming up.
We do.
We do. Strings.
No, none of us going to say what it is.
No,
But let's keep it suspense.
it's a secret and no one's allowed to know. We've got strings coming up at the end of the month.
That we do.
24th to 28th of September.
24th to the 28th, that's correct.
Yeah, so Tara, you're obviously directing it. And
I am.
Kim, we wrote it together.
We
and
did.
we're acting it.
And we're acting it.
And we're acting it.
Yeah.
Lin-Manuel Miranda's themselves.
No rapping though.
over here.
Well,
That's
I
no
think
rapping.
we've got time to change that.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got like a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we can definitely get it in.
Musical?
Hey,
Watch
I
this
mean-
space.
strings.
Strings the Musical 2025.
Yeah.
On ice. Why not? Yeah.
How's it then? How's it looking?
I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I'm really excited actually.
Yeah, me too.
It's like rehearsals have been going really well. We've got an amazing team. Kim's wonderful. Tara's wonderful.
You're
fine.
pretty wonderful.
Who's that?
Who's producing it?
Sláinte Theatre is producing
Sláinte
it.
Theatre's producing it. But no, it's going really well. I'm really happy
Yeah.
so far. Yeah, I mean, a couple of weeks out, 3 weeks out.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
up quick.
Very
Just
quick.
under 3 weeks
Just under
now.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Wow, exciting. How do you think it's going? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, really good. I think it's going really well. Rehearsals are great. I think like even though it's really interesting writing something and then having someone new come on to direct, because you learn so much more from your own script and you learn stuff. I've learned more about the characters that without Tara I wouldn't have even explored, so that's really cool.
I think that was really important from even the very beginning, and like why we kind of brought Tara in. And obviously we ran our R&D.
We did.
From the very get-go we're good at being like, cool, we're gonna break it down and give us reason and find out why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Which meant
And that's
we were
the thing.
able to push you as writers, but also now Tara, having been attached to this for so long, has so much ownership of the work that you can be actors now.
Yeah.
Because we've done that whole process. She knows what the motivation behind each line is, each character.
Yeah.
That now you're in that room, you're an actor, and she can be the voice for the writer, which is typically a how process.
Yeah,
would
and
be.
also I think we found a really nice middle ground, even in the work, between these two characters. Like it's a play of two voices, right? And we spent that whole R&D trying to find a way to tell them both in a way that, you know, doesn't favour one or the other. And I think what's really interesting is we found that middle bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because like in the R&D, we'd already written a few drafts of it, and we came out and we were like, okay, this feels like it's it. And then we did the R&D, and I was like, oh,
It's nowhere near done.
this needs change so much. But it, because of that, I think because we wrote it together. I mean, it was the first time either of us had written anything with another person.
How was that?
It was good.
I thought it was really good. Yeah.
I mean, it was one of the first things we did when we said we were going to write this. We sat down and we kind of talked about how we work.
Oh, it's gonna,
And we work in a very similar way. So that was great, because if we'd worked completely differently, it just wouldn't have happened. Especially because neither of us had written with anyone else before. It was like, you know, but we got that, and we have always had like the same ideas. We always had the same idea of what it was going to be.
Because we had that initial
Yeah.
meeting, didn't we, where we came up with the characters. I mean, you know, not fully formed characters, but we had kind of the foundation, and we thought, okay, this is what they're going to go through. This is, you know, how they've become who they are up until this point. So we had that foundation. Then we were both able to go off, write our interpretations of it, bring it back, and keep kind of volleying. Which I thought was a really good way.
That's
of
the thing,
working
and
for
it's,
us.
yeah, and it feels like someone asked the other day, like, oh, do you know like who wrote which part?
Yeah.
Can't remember.
I can't remember either. Yeah.
Because it feels like we've all just done all these little bits, and it feels like ours. It doesn't feel like this bit's mine, this bit's yours.
Absolutely. You know? Which I really like.
Yeah.
I like that I can look through the script and not remember if I've written that line or not.
Yeah.
Which also shows like a coherence of both of your
For
approach
sure.
to the work, is that you're like, oh, well, I would have thought that, but
Yeah.
also so would he.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
there was one I think there's only been one thing that I was like, oh, here's an idea, and you're like, I don't like that. And I was
Yeah.
like, and you were right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I was right.
You were right.
I was.
I don't even know what it is now, Faith.
I felt so bad
No,
as
but
well.
it was-
I was like, in a different play, that would be great,
Yeah.
but not this play.
But it was, but it's, I was like, well, and then you were like, yeah, this is why. And I was like, oh, yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
But apart from that, we haven't had any arguments.
No.
Haven't had any disagreements.
No.
I mean, it obviously helped that we were friends before.
Yeah.
You do sound like a couple that's only like 6 months in right now.
That's so true.
Yeah,
We'll write our second play and that's where it'll all go wrong.
You're like,
Yeah.
we've never fought. And I'm like,
This is
Just wait.
We definitely had, I think...
Bickers.
No. I was going to say we had differences of, we changed things to each other's scripts, but even then we were both like, oh yeah, no, I see why you've changed that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like we weren't scared of kind of changing each other's work.
It's like
but
you
we were
both had a built-in editor.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, so this is a play about romance, the next one's going to be divorce.
Yeah.
People being really
And it'll be
unhappy.
taken from your personal life.
Yes,
Watch
Tara,
this space.
what was it about the script when you read it that you thought, hey, this is the best thing I've ever read?
Absolutely, that's exactly.
Yeah, that was word for word what Tara said.
Absolutely.
Tara
We
came
can
back
get the
and-
receipts.
Tara came back and said, this is the best thing I've ever read, and if I don't get to direct this, I'm going to die.
I'm gonna be so upset.
Oh my goodness.
No, I mean, well, firstly, I've always had a real interest in all kinds of, like, yes, I say romantic relationships, but I just mean the ways that like two people can affect each other. It's my favourite type of theatre to watch and therefore to make. So I was kind of already on the lookout for something like this anyway. So when I got the script, I was like, oh, this is exactly my type of thing, which was so exciting. But yeah, I think it was really exciting for me because it's been a while since I've like been in on the ground with something. Like there's been a lot of things that I've done recently that already exist and we're trying to figure out how to do it new or how to do it differently. But I think with this, because we are indeed it all together, it felt like we were at the beginning of something really exciting, which was so fun for all of us to kind of sit there and be like, wow, like look at this thing that we're making. It's unique. And it's one of those things where, like, I think I said this somewhere, theatrically, it's so interesting because you've got these two voices and the ways that they tell the same story are really interesting, which is obviously funny because it's a play written by two people. And, like, here we are, the two of you, as one voice, have created two very distinct voices, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Is there a character you feel like you align more with?
That's an interesting question because I do think probably Sophia, but I wouldn't say that I am Sophia.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I really share any of Alex's qualities, really, whereas I share quite a few of Sophia's.
Yeah.
But I would say, probably more Sophia. What about you?
See, I feel like I share a bit of both. I don't think I'm like Alex. I think, there's certain parts of him, like the way that he's quite realist and what are you like?
I'm just listening to you speak.
Because he's quite exact and likes things a certain way and likes things done his way, and that's kind of me. You're nodding, yeah.
Apart from in the writing process.
Yeah, in the writing process.
You're able to let
that
that
sounds like a dream. I think you should take some.
But then there's a lot of parts of Sophia that I'm like, oh yeah, there's stuff like that. And even, obviously we were very clear from the start that we weren't going to write this. This isn't like our stories. This isn't our lives, But there's bits that have taken inspiration.
Yeah, I think especially when you're talking about something, when you're creating a story that's so personal, it's difficult to not.
Yeah, of course.
Even if it's subconsciously draw from your own
Yeah.
experiences.
Well, it's been nice
here
because
and there.
every person who's been involved with the project in some way has been like, oh, that's like this thing that happened to me, or this thing that's happened to my friend. That's what we hope people will feel when they watch it as well, is that there's so many bits of it that are so universal, which is really nice.
That's the thing, and that's again what we talked about right at the start. This is going to be a play that, yes, it's a very specific scenario, but that everyone will feel like they can relate to.
Yeah. It's quite funny because I remember having conversations about our relationships and we kind of picked out things that would be fun to write about. None of them made the play. None of them did. It's like, this would be really fun, but it's too specific.
Yeah.
Like that, it's no longer universal.
Yeah. I mean, it would have changed the dynamic of the play.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we'll tell you that story off camera.
Yeah.
Tease.
Yeah, come to the play and you can find out.
Yeah.
No, you won't find
If you
out.
come to the play,
You'll find out what we didn't include in it.
If you stay for a drink, we'll
Yeah,
whisper in your ear.
we'll tell you afterwards.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, and like we wanted it to be so relatable, and you do have to take. I mean, everything that anyone writes, there's always going to be a little bit of yourself in it.
Yeah.
But we wanted it to be about so much more than just a love story.
Absolutely,
Like we did rehearsal the other day with Holly, the assistant director, and we were just talking. Then it got into this whole conversation about religion, and we sat here and talked about religion for a good half an hour, and they were like, "No, we do ours."
Yeah.
But it's like it's that thing, and it's so much more than just two people who love each other. It's about two people in their kind of mid-20s who are growing up and figuring out what it is to be an adult, what it is that they want from life, what it is that they want from relationships.
Yeah.
And it's about them learning and learning how to be a person.
I think also for me, it's about whether or not there's such a thing as like what actually happened. Like there's a bit, I'm gonna talk about it really vaguely because unfortunately you will have to come to the play. But there's a bit where an event happens and we see the same thing from two completely different perspectives because they both talk through what was happening in their heads. And I think one of the things that drew me to the play was this idea that, like it happens a lot in real life. If you have an interaction with another person, you and them will interpret it completely differently. And to see it on stage, I think it's something that's really interesting because it's like, well, what did actually happen? Like how did they both remember it? How did they both go away and tell their friends about it? Like everyone is going to have such a different perspective, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
It's like that thing, there's like three sides to every story. There's your version, there's my version, the version that actually happened. And I think that was something that we really wanted to explore, and it was something you brought up with the R&D, that whole idea of unreliable narrators and can you really trust what people are telling you and what they're saying. And I think that one event that you're talking about really highlights that and really makes you question actually how much of what they've
Any of
said
it is
actually true, or is it just their interpretation of what went on.
Absolutely.
Which I think is really interesting. And
and then ultimately that is what a relationship is, because it's between, well, in this case it's between two people, and so their perspectives, what actually happened, like you said, it doesn't actually matter because it's just what they think happened.
Of course. So Kim, talk us through your journey. What led you here? What from
Birth.
from birth? Give us your entire life story.
Okay.
From birth to right this second.
How did you get here? What brought you to London? You're not from London, and brought you into this industry.
So I've always been kind of a creative person. When I was younger, I was more interested in writing poetry. That's kind of what I focused on. And then I did a little bit of acting. And then it was always kind of what I wrote. I wanted to be a writer when I grew up. I wanted to be a writer. And it was never really like I want to be on stage, like I want to be creating the world rather than kind of performing it. Not obviously actors have a hand in that too, but I then I went to university in Cardiff. I joined the Drama Society just to act, and I realised this is fun. But when I found out that they let you kind of write and propose your own shows, I thought I'm just gonna give this a go because why not? And I wrote my first show and I had so much fun, and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do when I am creating worlds, creating characters. And then I think like with theatre in particular, you get to actually see it in front of you. Like you see how people have interpreted it, you see it performed, kind of, it's such an amazing experience to be able to just see it firsthand. So that's kind of how I got into script writing. And I originally, when I graduated, I did a master's in creative writing, and I originally wanted to kind of just take the year off and just do loads of writing, but then COVID hit. So I had to move back home. And I was home for like 18 months, and I thought, I want to move to London now, because London is like such a good place to meet creatives, have those like creative opportunities. And so yeah, that's kind of a little bit.
So your first play you wrote, because obviously that's how we met in Drama Society in uni. Your first play was the Panto.
Well, so my first play was actually a short play at staging a coup.
Yes, of course, because I was meant to be in that.
Yeah. Which was about it was a comedy. It was like 20 minutes long, and it actually featured a character that you played. It was basically about a bus that was like a service bus that went to and from a prison, and the bus broke down. So everyone on the bus was visiting people in prison. The bus broke down in the middle of nowhere. There was a prisoner on the loose who had escaped from prison, and chaos ensued. So that was actually the first play I wrote, and then the second play was the Panto, which actually that I wrote with Sally.
Yeah.
So this is my second play I've written with someone
Can we
else.
do the prison bus play next?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Scratch. That sounds like a Halloween
Hey,
heads or tails.
that's
Yeah,
an idea.
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I had two characters in that. I loved those characters so much I put them in another play.
Which,
I love that.
one of those I
Which
played.
is which one is at
Fringe.
the Edinburgh Fringe, yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
you wrote the short play, then you wrote Panto, and
Yeah.
then you wrote Hotel d'Espoir,
Yeah.
which you were going to put on as Act 1 was the Drama
Yes.
Society, and
Yes.
then COVID happened.
So I put it on at the Fringe.
Yeah, so then Kim messaged me.
I was like,
We
do you
hadn't
want to
seen
do
each other in
this
ages, and was
part?
just like, here, do you want to do this part in the Fringe? And I was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we went to the Fringe, and
It was so
Sold
much
out.
fun. We did sell out.
Where
Yeah.
were you at Fringe?
at
That's
Surgeon's
useful.
Hall.
Surgeon's Hall
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Got good reviews.
Yeah, we
Brilliant
did.
reviews.
Yeah. They said I had waggish powers, which was the first time I'd heard the word waggish.
Waggish.
Yeah, I was like,
Is it
okay.
I was going to say, what does that even
It's
mean?
better than waggish.
Apparently, yeah,
Is
waggish is like funny,
Okay.
I think. Well, that's what I googled. That's
Nice.
what Google told
Inserting
me.
that into the vocab.
Yeah,
we'll be
yeah,
taking that.
waggish.
Yeah.
Nice. I thought wags, like wives and
Footballers,
girlfriends, and
yeah.
I was like, I
Don't get
really
that.
like that
Yeah.
as a description.
No, I think it was like waggish powers of wit or something. So
Oh, okay.
I
Love
got
that.
I got like the vibe that he thought it was funny.
Why is that not on the
So-
strings poster?
Yeah, you didn't give me
Waggish
any cool quotes. What?
No, so you wrote Hotel d'Espoir.
Yes.
And then you went to the Fringe the next year.
Yes, and that one was more of a kind of dark comedy. It was actually an adaptation of my master's dissertation, and that also looked at perspective, interestingly. It was basically a murder, can I say?
Yeah.
I don't, just trigger one.
This is a
I don't know.
murder-free podcast.
Basically, a murder. It was about family, the Waters family, and the husband had murdered his wife on an Easter Sunday, whilst he was dressed as the Easter Bunny. Because the wife made him dress up as the Easter Bunny every year. And basically the whole family witness it, but in different ways, and they all remember it wrong. So it was basically a series of monologues where they're all describing the same event, but you would not know that they're describing the same event. And you don't, so it doesn't really matter who. So like, for example, there's the husband's brother, he thinks he did it because he was blacked out
He thinks
drunk.
he did it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then you've got there's twins, and they were both young, so they kind of have like they've blocked it out through like trauma. So they're both. So there's one monologue. She's in a therapy session, but she thinks that she's interviewing for a job, and it's all about protecting rabbits. So she's just like, it's just a stream of consciousness, and it's about her wanting to be a vet because she wants to protect rabbits because she just has an image of a bloody rabbit. So yeah, it's very dark, but it was like it was very experimental, and it was really fun to do. It was I think it was a nice challenge for those actors as well, because those were long monologues. They were on stage for like 10 minutes at a time. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was that.
And is this your London debut?
I actually did Desavoir at the White Bear Theatre with
Nice.
KDC Theatre in March. So that was the first one. Yeah, so that's like technically the third time I put the show on, if you count the pre-COVID dress run. But yeah, so this is the second show that I'll be doing in London.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah.
And your debut?
And my debut, yeah. Yeah, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Scary,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I really can't wait.
This is the first time I'll be acting my own work,
Ooh.
which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exciting, because I've never done that.
God, this writer's terrible.
Yeah. I can't work with this.
It's crazy you guys don't know your line.
And it's funny because I was talking to my friend the other day, and he was telling his sister, "Oh yeah, Aaron's written a play, and he's learning lines for that." And his sister was like, "He's learning lines? Didn't he write it?"
Did he write the lines?
It's 105 pages long.
Yeah.
Tara.
Yeah, Tara, do you want to tell us about your journey? How did you get yourself here?
So I grew up on this kind of weird line between academics and creatives. So at school, I ended up in a situation where I was taking biology A-level, chemistry A-level, history A-level, English A-level. And it was one of those things where at 16, 17, I hadn't committed to going one way or the other.
Yeah.
So I was like, we'll do both for now. I mean, I did kind of like stage school and stuff on the side. And I always loved singing. That was kind of where the theatre passion started for me. It was acting, but it was more specifically singing. That was kind of the thing that I enjoyed the most. I'm also hopeless at dancing. So there was never a musical theatre career on the horizon for me, as much as I pretended that there was. So yeah, I ended up going to uni to do English Lit, because halfway through sixth form, I was like, right, we're gonna make the decision. And so I did my English Lit degree, and I got to Warwick, where I went to uni, and Warwick is blessed to have a really amazing student theatre scene. There's loads going on, all different types. There was a space for everyone to make what they wanted to make, which was really lovely. So I got there, and I had the worst freshers flu, and I was like croaking. And so I auditioned for a couple of shows, and there was just nothing. And so obviously I didn't get into any of them. And so I was like, wait, so like I'm not in the show. Like, what am I gonna do? And I remember I shadow directed somebody on one of these student shows. And immediately I was like, oh, I like this. I like something in it clicked for me. And I realised that, I don't know, it was a way that I could experience the theatre that I had loved my whole life, just in a new way that wasn't really available to me before. Like, I remember at school, we would do our school musicals every year, and they kind of like, on one level, I kind of like assistant directed some of my school musicals, but I think it wasn't until I got to uni that I started realising that was the path that I wanted to go down.
Yeah.
So then I was one of those people who spent every spare moment doing student theatre and not doing my degree.
I mean,
Aren't we all?
Don't we all do that?
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, but what's really interesting is actually an English Lit degree is great for being a director, because it means that I have a really text-focused approach to my work, which is really fun, because it means that I, like my levels of like reading comprehension and stuff, like I understand people, I understand the way that they work, I understand how they speak, which honestly couldn't have been a more beneficial degree. Was really, really nice. And so yeah, I got hit with COVID about halfway through the whole kind of uni situation. I also did a year abroad, which was at Trinity College in Dublin, which was lovely for me because I'd only ever been to Cork, where my family's from. And so it was really nice to just get out, experience a new part of Ireland. And yeah, I spent a full year there. Again, did a bunch of student theatre, met some really lovely people. But I then kind of came back laser focused of like, right, we're doing this. What can I do to get as much experience as possible? And so I was really lucky to work part-time at the Birmingham Hippodrome. And I initially was hired to kind of direct for their youth company, and because I do a lot of youth theatre and facilitation and stuff. But I told them I wanted to be a director, and they just said, that's great, like you can sit in on the rooms of any of the things that we're developing and you can just watch. Which was amazing. It was a really good way, and people on those shows I've seen in the industry since, and I've had conversations with them, and it's been really lovely. So yeah, I decided to train. So and to be fair, it was a really big debate that I had with myself for a while about going to drama school and doing, which I did a directing masters.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's highly specialised, but it's also, it's not something that's available to everyone. It's not something that's particularly accessible, unfortunately. And so it was a huge debate for me and for my family, and it was one of those things where, I felt so lucky when I was there that I just had the space to just try stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was really just a year where I could just experiment with no consequences, because like out in the world, there's producers' money on the line, and there's reviews, and there's all these kind of things that mean that you don't necessarily get to fail.
Yeah.
And you don't just get to try stuff. And that is one of the best things that I think Manby did for me, was that it was just a year for me to be like, right, okay, let's just see if this works, if I do it like this.
Yeah.
And it meant I could really develop my practice in a way that not a lot of people get to do, because there was no fear, there was no consequences, which I think the training was so beneficial in that way. Yeah. So that was it was a really lovely year. And then just since then I've been lucky enough to work on a bunch of shows at a variety of scales, which has been really exciting. I've assisted and associated for some really cool people. I've done some really cool stuff on my own, but I knew that London was the place that I wanted to be. Like, even aside from this job, I always knew I'd wanted to move to London. I grew up kind of in the middle of nowhere, and some of the people who grew up with me really liked that. I like everything to be very fast paced, and I like to be busy, and I like to have a million, and I want to feel like I'm in a place where there's stuff going on. So I always knew. And to be fair, even in Dublin, like that was a step up for me from where I grew up, and so I knew that London would be a step up from that as well. I always knew I'd end up here at some point,
doing something. You're like, I'd work in marketing to be here.
Honestly, there's an alternate universe where I'm a really successful corporate girlie. And
I see it. It's so interesting what you brought up about drama skills, though, because I know we've talked about it a lot. So we both went to Central, and I talk about a lot. Like, I'm a guest speaker at universities now, and I go and I'm like, here are the 3 ways you can get into the industry. You can be a nepo baby, you can train, or you can just work in.
Yeah.
And every time they're like, you went to drama school.
Yeah.
Do you recommend it? And I'm like, some people it's great, some people it's not. And at the end of the day, like, the one thing I credit Centre for is that it gave me time.
Yeah.
It gave me time because I was a baby and I moved to London and I didn't even know how to take the tube for the first week. I used to walk 25 kilometres.
Oh my goodness.
Uphill both ways.
Wow.
So I was just like terrified of London as a concept.
Yeah.
I think you're right in that it gives you that time, and I think it's just really important to kind of be able to credit that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the whole time I was grateful to know that, it's a crazy opportunity, and it's not one that is open to everyone, which is really sad. It's really frustrating to know that there's so many incredible creatives out there who could benefit from these opportunities, but they just don't have the access to them.
I think it's also really interesting how you spoke about not knowing about careers in a way. Like, we all came up through youth theatres and university theatres, and I'm the same. I didn't know what a producer was. Like, I think that's so often is that we all kind of grew up singing and dancing and reading our monologues. I got sent because I did speech therapy, and my mum was like, learn to talk. Like, you know what I mean? There's so many ways in which we all get into it, and we all come out like, we're going to be an actor, and then we go, I like this thing so much more. And it's like really special that you get to find that.
Yeah, 100%. And I teach youth theatre now, so I see that in my students. Like, I see some of them will go on to be absolutely fantastic actors, but I see some of them watch the stage managers and go, what are they doing? And I see, like, all this kind of stuff, and I want to give them the opportunity to realise that theatre is so much more than just wanting to be an actor when you're 15, there's so many more things you can do.
And you still get to feel that bubble inside. I know there's actors I trained,
you still get to open a show, and you still get to have the community, and
there's like actors that I went to uni with who are like, but it's not the same, you don't feel what I feel. And I'm like, there's a reason it's my job. So it's not like 15-hour days or like, I do, but I feel it over my perfectly budgeted spreadsheet. Like, it's nerdy, but it's there. We all that's what we love about it, is we all get to feel that, and it's just in such different ways, and we get to specialise what we can do. Because I sucked at acting. I'm alright producing,
So Tara, I'll go for you first because I always feel like I'm going Kim.
Let's switch it up.
Yeah, let's switch it up.
Let's do it.
So Tara, is there an Irish creative that's left a lasting impact on you or that you believe deserves more recognition?
See, I am always going to have one answer to this question, and it is my darling friend Dean Johnson, who gave me my first few jobs, but also was one of the first people to really take me seriously, which I think was so much more valuable than anything that he could have practically given me. I was a really big fan of his work. He's working on a new show that I know the piece very well. Mm-hmm. And so through some really lovely friends who agreed to put me in contact with him, I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'm really excited that you're developing this thing and all that kind of stuff. And he instantly was so generous with his time and with his knowledge and with everything, and he let me come and observe the workshop of the new piece that they were doing, and from there we became friends. And he is so instrumental now in how I've gotten to where I am. Like, he gave me my West End debut, like he all this kind of stuff. But I think the best thing about Dean is that he always turns around and extends the hand, like they are my favorite type of people, like he never forgets where he was, where he came from, and he understands that so many people are in that situation. And it's something like I can't wait to start doing that, like I can't wait. I've had my first taste of it recently with like a couple of opportunities that I've been able to give people, and it's just the loveliest feeling to be able to be like, I would have loved this opportunity, and I'm really excited to give you a platform and to give you a voice. And him doing that for me very early on in my career, I'll never forget it. And also the work that he makes is incredible, which is really, really lovely. He has a real understanding not only of text and visuals and all of the practicalities that come with being a director, but also of people. Like I remember being really in awe of how he holds a space and how he makes people feel valued. And it was just will be forever grateful to him, which is it's really nice.
Kim, what about you?
Mine is not as personal.
That's okay.
That's all right.
No, it's personal but in a different way. The person is not personal. So for me, it's C.S. Lewis. Because that was kind of the first series of stories that I read and thought, I want to be a writer.
Wow.
I remember they were my dad's favourite books as a child, so I was like an avid reader, so he gave them to me when I was very young, because I could read, because I was just not doing anything else. I couldn't go outside, but I could read a book. And I remember reading these and thinking, this is what I want to do. I want to create worlds, I want to create characters, and create something that has a lasting effect on people. So that's
a good answer.
That's a beautiful answer as well.
I got those books in the most Irish way possible.
Really?
I got a Narnia box set for my first Holy Communion, and in and amongst all of the candles and the necklaces and all the other things I got given for my communion, I sat at my communion party and read the first Narnia book.
Wow. I love that.
That's hilarious. It's so Irish.
It is, isn't it?
What advice would you give to someone moving to London from where you're from?
Me.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I feel like we'll get onto this at some point, but where I'm from is a very complicated question as a concept. But I think, in general, there's this perception of London as this big, scary place, and to a certain extent, it is. People have very structured lives, and I think the number one thing I would always say is find your communities, and unfortunately that does involve you having to go and find them. If you move here, it's so easy to meet a bunch of people, but you have to take that first step of going to a class or finding a sports team or doing theatre. There's so many wonderful theatre groups all around London where you can meet people, but you have to be the one to take that first step. And I know so many people who've moved to London and, said that it didn't work out for them. Yeah. But unfortunately, you just have to take that first step. You have to take that leap. And it's really scary to move to a completely new city and just put yourself out there like that. Yeah. And I always remember that because that's not scary to me because I'm an outgoing theatre person. But so many people move to London are not outgoing theatre people.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to just be like, okay, after work, I'm going to go join a netball team and see if I make any friends, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's really hard.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
really hard, especially when you just move here. So I'm talking over you, but I think coming here for drama school, it gives you that kind of community of people who are kind of like-minded. Whereas if you just come here and just move here for a job or whatever, it's a lot harder to kind of have that.
Yeah.
And I mean, London, it's huge, but it can be a really lonely place.
Yeah,
It's really
absolutely.
important to kind of get out there, and as hard as it can be, to get out there and, you know, put yourself out there and
Absolutely.
you know, make those connections, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's like, and I may have said this before in the podcast, but I think the best thing to realise and to learn, and it took me like a year to learn it, is that everyone in London is lonely.
Yes.
Like,
everyone wants friends just as much as you do.
Yeah, like one of my best friends is London born and bred. She lives, you know, the same place she's always lived. And she still is looking for people to hang out with and go to the pub with. And like, I think once you clock that and you're like, in the nicest way, I'm not special for feeling this way.
Yeah.
Everyone else feels this way. Suddenly you get that urge to like, actually, it's fine to be like, oh, do you want to hang out next week? Like, we can just have a walk in the park and like, I don't know, I know as someone, I'm always like, oh no, what if that person feels awkwarder and stuff? So I like gave me permission to be like, I'm helping them if I offer, and I'm like, no, it's also for me.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that's always a good thing to remember, is like, everyone in London feels lonely.
Yeah.
So it's fine to be like, hey, do you want to hang out? Hey, I started a theatre company to find myself friends.
And you found us.
Yay, there we are.
Kim, what about you?
I agree with, I think that is the biggest thing, put yourself out there. I think another thing that really resonated with me, because I had friends that moved to London before I did, is to give it time. I think a lot of people need kind of a warm-up to live in London. They need, and that's a different amount of time for everyone. For some people it's 3 months, for some people it's a year. It takes a long time to settle in.
Absolutely.
So if you're feeling, I think, you know, you move. I struggled when I first moved. It was a few months in and I thought, did I make the right decision? I don't know if I'm happy here. But it's just kind of giving yourself a bit of space to breathe, giving yourself some time. And yeah, there's so much to do in London, and there's so much, because it's so big, there are so many avenues to explore, and you're not going to explore them, all of them, within the first few months that you live here. So
You're not going to explore them all ever.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
There's endless things to do.
So yeah, give yourself a bit of a break, I
Yeah.
think, and give yourself some time to just settle in, or sit and then if it's still not for you, that's fine. But I have found a lot of people have said once they've given themselves that time, they're like, oh, actually, this is my place.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think, especially for us, like there's a lot of people from our circle uni who moved here. Who moved here. And so it's kind of nice having that base of people who are in the Drama Society University.
Absolutely.
And I live in London.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, that's like it was a friend's birthday party. And we were like, oh, we'll write a play. And
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah.
You know, a year later.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's getting out there and it's making those connections with people. So Kim, how does your heritage influence your work?
I think that's a really complicated question, because I don't really come from anywhere. I have so much of a mix in me. So my dad was born in London, and his family come from a long line of Londoners, but then they also grew up in Wales, so he feels quite connected to Wales in that way. And then on the other side, my mum is South African, but then her family come from Irish heritage, so they all feel kind of have different connections to their heritage. And then I didn't grow up in either of those places. I moved around loads as a kid. I was born in Leicester. I lived in Wales for a bit, and then I predominantly grew up in the north, in Halifax, a small little town, not the bank. So in terms of kind of a heritage, I really struggle with that.
Do you think that kind of the whole mix of South African, Welsh and Irish, do you think that has influenced your work?
Well, I was going to say, I think having that mix and having that kind of idea of, I don't quite know what my identity is, that definitely influences my work, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think kind of even realising in this podcast, having written 2 plays on different perspectives, I think is like a perfect kind of emulation of that. It's like, well, I don't even know if I have one perspective.
But there's even in the play, there's so much about what it is to be at home as well.
And to feel
like you belong.
And not having that sense, I come to the south and everyone's like, you're from the north. I go to the north and everyone's like, you're from the south. It's like, you're not from anywhere. And like you said, we have the character, not to spoilers, the characters feel that in their own way as well. So I think, and sometimes I'm writing and you don't realise that you're actually writing stuff that is actually very personal, and then you read it and you're like, oh, I've come out in this. Let's dial it back. So
Wow.
Tara, what about you?
I am definitely going to get too philosophical about this, but I think something that I realised when I I think it was in training really more than anything else, it's that working in the arts means that you think much more about your identity than if I was working like an office job. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, I think there are so many aspects of myself that, and I think it's beautiful that we all put ourselves into our work, and also that we all connect on such a personal level. Like, I think it's one of the nicest things about the arts is that you can always meet people, and quite quickly you have quite serious conversations because people are quite open, which is really lovely. So I'm mixed race. My dad is Irish. He emigrated to the UK, and then my mum is Indian, and my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, they all live in West London. And again, kind of like Kim, I didn't grow up in either of those places. Like, I grew up in a very white, very middle class, kind of middle of nowhere in the English countryside. And I think it wasn't until I started working in the arts that I found this way to kind of connect to those parts of myself in a way that I didn't really think about at school. Like, at school, I'd say I was one of maybe 6 or 7 kids in my whole year of 200 people who weren't white. And it was one of those things where you maybe thought about it, but not anywhere near as much as when I went to Warwick and I met other brown people who'd grown up Indian, and then I went to Dublin and I spent a whole year with Irish people. And it's that classic mixed race thing of being like, you're not quite Irish enough for Irish people and you're not quite Indian enough for Indian people. And so I think that's something that I'm really grateful for in terms of my work. It's that I can feel really connected to both of those things, and I can really explore that in a way that I don't think I would have the opportunity to do in a lot of other jobs. I think it would just be something that we don't really sit and think about. And I am a huge voice for diversity and diverse voices, and it gets me into trouble sometimes, but it's one of those things where I use the position that I have to be able to speak on those things and to be able to educate people on those things. And to be fair, I did it a lot in Dublin, right? Like, I think something that I realised spending a year there, it's that the Irish theatre industry and London are in 2 very different places. They're in 2 very different worlds. And so things that I just accepted as like a fact that everybody knew, I moved to Dublin and I was like, oh, that's not the case, like, that's not something that everybody just knows and accepts to be true. And so it's been one of those things where I have had to contemplate it a lot more than I think people normally do, which it's interesting, and I'm really grateful to have had to do that. But sometimes it's like, oh wow, like, I have to sit and think about this stuff, like, in a way. And I think, like, we all do it to a certain extent. There's loads of bits of our identity that we put in our work, and that means that we start talking about them. And maybe we would live in like an ignorance is bliss kind of way, but I think it's really beautiful that we don't.
We were kind of talking about it the other day, and the difference in talking to someone who works in the arts and someone who works in a different job, and how you would talk to someone who's a director or an actor, and it's such a key part of who they are. So I think, as you said, like, if you're working a different job, your questions of identity and all that kind of stuff maybe wouldn't come up, but because it doesn't really have to. Whereas in the arts, it's like, because it's so much there and it's so much entwined. Like your job is so much entwined as to who you are as a person.
Yes.
Which is why people who work in the arts never really have hobbies, because their hobby is their job. You know?
We're not getting into this. We're not getting into this. I gave him a complex.
Yeah, but it's true.
But he doesn't have a hobby.
I don't have any hobbies.
Talk about
Work-life balance. Who is she?
Yeah.
It's one of my favourite things to do to people who work in the arts, and to particularly artists that I'm developing or working on development with. I'm not developing them.
What are your hobbies?
Is making them name their hobbies. I did it to my boss once, and then like 6 months later, he's like, I can't stop thinking about it. And I was like,
I mean,
sorry.
you said it to me ages ago, and I was like, I just work. That's all I do.
yeah, we lose our hobbies because the thing that was our hobbies our whole life became our jobs, and
I have to deal with actors who have that realization daily.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, I was like, oh, what are you going to do when you go home? And they're like, learn my lines. I'm like, what else are you going to do when you go home?
eat or shower, do
Sleep.
something else, please. Like, yeah, but like,
Go outside.
Yeah.
it's I had a friend of mine from home who was like, I think you should find something that's like never been commodified, because like I grew up doing singing, dancing, all these things, but they were all exams, so
Yes.
they're all based in achievement. My friend was like, you've never danced for fun.
Yes,
You've
no.
never sung for fun. You've
I'm really
never-
bad at letting
yeah.
myself be shit at stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
me too.
I can't let myself be bad at
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I paint, but I suck at it. But I paint
Yeah.
now because it's never been any part of my job ever,
Yeah.
and it never will be.
But even when we talked about that on that phone call, where you were like, "What hobbies do you have?" and I was like, "If I'm not good at something, I don't like it." You know what I mean? So.
Me and driving. Driving, who needs it?
But it's like, but so much of, like you said, like hobbies and stuff, even through school, like rugby, is very competitive, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, if I'm not good at this, I'm not going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's a but to find something that's not achievement based or competitive is it's hard, but it's also like hard to like actually enjoy that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Kim,
Yes.
what's your favourite Irish or Scottish saying? Not Irish, the Irish saying. 'Cause
Hey, if you want to bring
Oh,
a
you
Scottish
know
one,
what?
Bring a
No,
Scottish
the
one
thing
in.
is, it is a Scottish saying.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's actually the only, like, I actually use it all the
oh
time.
my gosh.
I hope it's a real one now.
What is it?
Dinny Ken. I
didn't
didn't ken.
Yeah, it's
When I never say I don't know. I always say I didn't
Seriously?
ken. Yeah, sometimes I go, I
I
didn't
love
ken
the
here.
accent that's coming out. You're like, I never say I don't know. I always say I didn't care.
I say it all the time, and it's really funny because Harry, my partner, his mum is Scottish, and he's like, "Why?
I don't like this.
Why are you doing that? Why are you? You're not Scottish. Like what? I don't know, but it's my
You
favorite.
didn't ken?
Yeah, I didn't ken.
You're spending too
love
much
it.
time with it. That's what it is.
Yeah,
Specifically East Coast. Love it.
I can't even tell you where I heard it from.
That's right. No, I was going to say an Irish saying, and then this conversation has reminded me. So I had a Scottish housemate, and there were things that she always used to say that we now just can't stop saying, and they're all Scottish. So me and my housemate, we walk around, we say like, "I canny do that,"
Yeah.
every day, about 50 times a day. Like, or like, especially when we're looking for each other, we're like, "Can he see you?" Like all the time. But she also used to say, "Get to fuck," which is really, really satisfying to say. But no, the Irish one I was going to say. Because having lived in Dublin, there was a period where my dad would be like, "This is really funny because you're talking like Dublin dialect." So I say things that even he doesn't say because I lived in Dublin for a year. And so I went through a phase of just being like, "Sure, look, sure, listen," like, because
Oh, sure, look.
yeah, but also they add "sure, listen" sometimes. Like some of my friends are like, "Oh, sure, look, sure, listen," and I say it so fast now, and people are like, And I'm like, ignore me.
What does that mean?
Sure, look, sure, listen. It doesn't mean anything. It's just like
What context?
Sorry,
would you
just say it again in a way that it makes
Sure
It's
look,
almost- it's almost-
sure look, sure
look,
listen.
Sure listen.
It's almost like an "it is what it is" kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like, sure
okay.
look. I was down there anyway. I thought
Yeah,
might as well.
exactly.
Okay.
Sure look. It's like a precursor to starting a sentence. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Yeah.
What's the one that Paul Mescal likes?
Stop the lights.
Is it that?
Stop the
The
lights.
interview him and Scott.
Yeah, stop the
You
lights.
know what
yeah.
I want to know.
Which I'd never heard of before, and then they said, I was like, is that a
Ah, stop the lights.
And I was like, okay.
I love him doing that in so many different. I watched that. That's how I fall asleep at night.
Just watching that interview.
Me and Paul.
Yeah.
I love how much Scots has come out here. I think you guys should hang out with Carrie.
I was going to say the two Irish people.
Yeah.
Like, Scottish saying.
I love
Like,
Scotland.
This was meant to be an Irish episode.
We wanted an Irish episode, guys. Reel it
So
back.
many Scottish people on. I'm like,
Sorry.
We had Irish writers, Irish creatives.
Yeah.
Didn't we?
I know.
We just said Scottish
Yeah.
sayings, okay?
Yeah.
the Scots just can't get away from them. You can't get away from them.
Can't get away from it.
Sure look, sure listen.
Sure look. Right. So Tara, what's your favourite place in London?
No, so this is the question that you sent me the list of questions. That was the one that I found the hardest, which was really
Yeah.
stupid because it's the most trivial question. But there were a couple that I was going to say. Any of the parks, right? Any of the spaces. The one thing that I will say about the countryside is that I do have to be near trees. I have to be near some trees. Can't be too much of a concrete jungle. Like anytime I go to Canary Wharf or Greenwich or any of those places. But so parks, absolutely. Specifically the big central park. Like I love chilling in Hyde Park. I love Clapham Common. Basic, I know, but
I love
I
Clapham
live
Common,
near there. I live
yeah.
near there.
Can't go
I
wrong.
also think all of the kind of like, it's so funny me saying food markets as someone who can't eat a lot of foods, but the vibe of all of those kind of little streets where people are kind of selling stuff. Like I love the one at Elephant and Castle.
It's great.
I always go there before I go and see shows at the Southwark. And it's really nice, and just anywhere where it feels like stuff's happening. Those are my favourite places in London. Like anytime I get out of a tube station, I remember the first time I went to the kind of Cutty Sark area of Greenwich, and you just look around and it feels like stuff's happening, and that soothes my country girl soul, because that doesn't happen very often where I'm from, and the fact that I can just pop up in London and there's 5,000 things happening is amazing.
Kim, what about you? What's your favourite place in London?
Okay, so mine's really soppy.
Go,
So I'm very sorry. So mine is specifically the steps of St. Paul's Cathedral.
Okay.
Because that is where me and Harry had our first kiss.
Oh.
And it's like we used to work near there because we worked together, and it was on like our first date, and we had a really nice date, and we were like, let's just sit on the steps, and he was really nervous and I was like, I know you want to kiss me, and I was like I was like, what are you thinking about? And then and it was really sweet, and then we like used to go there. We don't work together anymore, but we used to go there like all the time, and it was just like our little spot.
You can tell that she wrote the love play.
Yeah. This is the Sophia coming up. So that is probably my favourite spot.
That's
really lovely. But like I think it's anywhere that holds a special.
Well, that's it. And I think like London is so big, and there are so many parts of London that I love. But that is like I remember a specific thing when I go there.
Yeah.
So
I thought you were gonna say because you feed the birds tuppence a bag.
that would have been a better answer.
And I was like, wow. Yeah,
Slay.
Love that for you. It's so nice though. It's so sweet. I think that's right though. Like I think a lot of people fall in love with London by falling in love with memories and with people and
Exactly,
the people you know and the people you meet here.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to experience.
Also, Drafts, the board game bar under Waterloo Station.
I love Drafts.
That may be my favourite place in
Yeah,
London.
I love Drafts.
We'll all go. We'll all go.
Yeah.
We'll all go. It's amazing.
It's a board game bar.
We'll all go.
It's really good.
It's so fun. There's also one in Hackney,
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go.
which is like got like a
Post-rehearsal
conservatory.
trip.
Absolutely.
Thank you both so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Of course, it's been so nice. This is the first time I've had two people on.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
A
It feels
momentous occasion.
Yes.
so stressful. We're like,
No
whoa,
way.
where are we going?
But no, it's been great. It's been so lovely having you both on. Come see Strings from
Yes.
the
Come and see Strings.
24th to the 28th.
Yeah, 5 opportunities.
5 nights at the Lion
24th
Unicorn.
to the 28th
Yeah.
of September.
At the Lion Unicorn
This month.
in Kentish Town.
There we go.
Nothing else is happening. Nothing else important is happening.
No
Nothing
other
else
shows
is
are
happening.
happening in September.
Just
this
this
one.
This is it. So if you don't come, you're completely missing out.
And
basically.
it's really good.
It's-
and I'm not biased at all.
No. It's hey, Tara said it's the best thing she's ever read.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, I went on the record.
Yeah. Anyway, that's enough of that. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. See you later.
Bye.